Welcome to the Kortex Media Podcast, Marketing Accelerator, your compass for navigating the dynamic world of marketing and business growth. I'm Korson Schmidt, founder of Kortex Media. Our mission is to equip marketing agencies with the custom growth solutions they need to unlock massive revenue increases and scale their business. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today, we're joined by a true branding visionary whose career journey is as diverse as it is fascinating. Dan Einzig, the founder of Mystery Brands, has a background that spans from designing for rock legends like the Rolling Stones and Elton John to pioneering branding in the cannabis industry. Originally a creative designer, Dan's path led him from London to Venice Beach, where he focuses on building emotive brands that connects deeply with consumers. His unique experience as both an agency consultant and a brand owner gives him a rare 360-degree perspective on the challenges and opportunities within branding. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Korson. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Yeah, I'm excited to get into this one. But I know I touched on your background, and we spoke about this in our last conversation about you working with the Rolling Stones and having a very unique background within branding, within marketing in general. But what was that first inspiration that you had that inspired you to co-found Mystery Brands? And how did your team identify the pain points that companies needed to solve these branding incompletions within their messaging and their branding itself?
Wow. Well, I think I always knew I wanted to run my own business. I think it was just something I was born into. My parents ran their own photography business, and so I guess that's something I grew up with. And I'd been working in the music business, as you mentioned, and I really wanted to carry on with that. But shortly after founding Mystery, the music business started to suffer a little when downloads started, and I say suffer a little, it kind of imploded massively. And we looked at, and then really I sort of wanted to follow my other passions, which is consumer lifestyle, but predominantly in the food and beverage and hospitality sector. So the idea of designing restaurant concepts and bars and clubs and hotels and then food and beverage packaging and brands. It just was super exciting to transition from music, which was also really great, but sort of suffering immensely as an industry until it kind of reinvented itself. Yeah, I think I always wanted my own company, and I always wanted to help. Initially on the music side, I was really helping bands kind of become brands, and I think that, and then more obviously in the food and beverage hospitality sector, people think of brands are brands there. So it's kind of how do people connect emotively? The lessons I learned in the music business around such an emotive product. There's nothing more emotive. Well, there are. Yeah, I mean, very, very few things more emotive than music, right? I mean, it does nothing but make you feel something. So as a product and as a brand, music's super powerful. And I learned a lot about how people connect with music and therefore with brands emotively, and that kind of kick-started a whole philosophy around trying to fulfill people's emotive needs through branding.
That's amazing. Now, with Mystery Brands, do you mind giving us a quick overview on your core services today, and perhaps highlight a service area that has seen the most growth recently within the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we're a strategy first creative branding agency. And I say strategy first because we have our own very clearly defined strategic branding methodology that I've developed over the last couple of decades, and that we've used to help countless business leaders define their vision. Because I believe that people with a really clear vision, or brands and companies with a clear vision, that they're able to define and then embed across their organization really clearly, means that everyone in their organization is pulling in the same direction and they achieve so much more success. So having a really clearly defined vision of what you're about, who you're for, why you exist, and then being able to make sure that everyone else understands that, your customers, your consumers, and your employees and your partners and your resources. It really sets you up for success.
Amazing. That's awesome.
So the strategy is really what we do first. And if we're working with bigger brands or big enterprise businesses who
Hmm.
have very clearly defined strategy already, then we, as brand strategists, we
Hmm.
appreciate the work that they've put into that, and we adopt it and develop the creative applications, on that foundation. And I think,
Hmm.
the what I hear from our clients is that very often they'll work with branding, marketing agencies, and they'll show them or share with them their brand strategy, and it's frustrating for them because it very often gets, ignored, or it gets kind of misunderstood.
Hmm.
But because we are brand strategists, I think we appreciate their strategy, and if they don't have one, we can help them define one, and then we use that really as the decision-making matrix for all the creative assets that we produce for, all the various marketing assets, whether that's interior design or packaging design, or whether that's identity, or whether that's, digital and web. And I think what that means is that across all of those areas, we bring great coherence. I don't like to use the word consistency too often, because I think consistency is kind of boring, and it's kind of what branding was 20 years ago, all
Hmm.
about stamping the same thing on everything. And that's a very corporate way of branding. And I think consumers have sort of moved beyond that. But there's a coherence that's important. And you can build that coherence by having a very clear vision, and then using that vision as a daily decision making matrix, like referring to it. And so what we've done is we've created a model called Brand Facets, and it's a one-page summary of all the facets of your brand. That's an easy everyday reference tool. And we found that the clients we've worked with that adopt this brand, brand facets model, and then they share it throughout their organization, it means that all the daily decisions are all pulling in that same direction. And it's really powerful. It has a multiplying effect for success. And we developed that actually initially as a tool for our own designers, our own creative team, to make sure that they really understood the brand positioning. They understood who the customer was. They understood where the white space is that this brand is trying to own in the customer's mind. And they understood the values of the brand. They understood the key messages and where those messages are on the customer journey. And
Hmm.
so they get a really clear understanding, and therefore they save a lot of time on the design. So that actually helps me as the agency owner. But quickly our clients saw these brand facets and thought that they would be very helpful for them internally as well. And so we've developed that and evolved that into a model that really works for our clients, as well as our creative teams.
No, that's amazing. Branding is such a different industry, right? Because like you have to nail that to have great marketing, whether it be digital, whether it be web, whether it be whatever you're doing, content creation, whatever you're doing, you have to have such a solid foundation, which is that brand, which is that message and that work piece. So there's a ton of misconceptions out there, and a lot of people skip that first branding activity. Now, you did speak about how your clients wanted to be a part of the brand facets that you guys created for mystery brands. Now, with speaking about your clients, do you mind giving us a quick story on how you have specifically helped one of your clients um, navigate the challenges that they were having and lift them up using mystery brands, services, your core offerings, and get them the results they were looking for within their company?
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, a good example is one locally. You mentioned that I'm in Venice, California, and a few years ago, uh, we were commissioned to help a a local hotel owner
Mm-hmm.
on the beach here in Venice. They had an amazing property right on the boardwalk. With every room has an ocean view, but they were really struggling because they hadn't it hadn't had much love for a while. They didn't have they didn't not have a clear vision of what it was about and who it was for. And they were and the you know they really had a number of longer term guests. They couldn't and they were missing out on that really lucrative vacation and business traveler market. And um, so they asked us to help them conceive, a vision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so so what we did is we went through the brand Facets model I just mentioned is actually one step in what we call absolute brand clarity. And that's our total methodology. And that's split into four phases. So research, collaboration, definition, and clarification. And so in the research phase for this hotel property, um, I looked at and I stayed at several of the local competitors to really get a really thorough understanding of who they were and who their guests were. So I spoke to some of their guests, I spoke to their employees, and really got a great understanding of kind of what the existing offerings in the market were like, not just hyper locally, but also around Los Angeles. Because when you're coming to LA, you're deciding where it is you want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And what that did, that gave us some insights into where the opportunity was. What is the opportunity for this property? And we located it as really an opportunity to create a a boutique hotel, a kind of creative design led boutique hotel that was really a reflection of an authentic reflection of the Venice beach culture, because Venice has a really unique culture, and it's based around all of the artists who live there. It's a large artistic community. There's still a lot of street art in the area. There's also a large skateboarding contingency
Mm-hmm.
because it's right by the skate park on Venice Beach. And Dogtown, which is what that area of Venice and Santa Monica are referred to, is kind of the hotel's at the epicenter of Dogtown, basically. And so as a way to differentiate from most of the beach hotels in California, particularly in LA, kind of either hint towards surfing and as a California lifestyle, or they are more of a kind of corporate, kind of cookie cutter type experience,
Mm-hmm.
which has its pros and cons, right? But so the opportunity was to develop a really authentic experience where it's not just you're not just a tourist, staying in a hotel, but you actually feel like you're living there for the duration of your stay. And so um, the vision that we created is called the Venice V Hotel. Every room is unique. Okay, so that's part of that reflection, that authenticity of Venice. Because if you're gonna be authentically Venice, you have to be uncorporate. Venice is not a corporate area at all. And so how can you be uncorporate? Well, one way is you can make sure that there's a huge amount of choice, and what you're building there is you're building an element of excitement for people, for guests to stay. They don't know exactly which room they're going to get, or if they choose their room, they can see from such a big variety, which is really exciting for them, and that fulfills a really important fundamental need, which I'll come back to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this vision that we were able to define, so that was so as the research and then the definition is working very closely with the existing team, the management team, and the owner to
Mm-hmm.
help really define what their values are and how and in using the insights from both of those sessions, we then define what the concept is in as few words as possible. So that's your kind of elevator pitch. And we also we think about the customer journey and the messages. We map out the messages on that customer journey, so that so that you're not saying the same thing to the same people again and again, because that gets boring. So we believe that, brands, people connect with people. Okay.
Yeah.
So a brand, for people to connect with it, it needs to have a personality like a person. Now, if you met somebody that just kept telling you the same thing again and again, they get boring pretty quickly.
For
And if you
sure.
met somebody that kept shouting the same thing, it would get annoying quite quickly. But that's what a lot of brands do. They decide what their message is and then they shout it out all the time. And so we found that actually what's important is to define a whole range of messages that start to build the picture and tell the story across the customer journey, from the moment that they've never heard of, the first time they're introduced to your brand, to the time when they're recommending your brand. So, at the end, once they've experienced it, how do we want them to recommend that brand and their experience? Well, if we figure out exactly what it is we'd like them to say, then we can plot backwards all the key messages that will build that story for them to be able to tell that story at the end. And so that's the third phase. The fourth phase is clarifying all of that, because that's now a big document with lots of information. It's got the research, it's got all the value generation, it's got the story, it's got,
Mhm.
it's got the brand, the customer journey.
Yeah.
And so so then that's when the brand facets model comes in, and we summarize all of that onto one page, and that becomes your decision-making matrix. And then finally, we help define how to execute on that brand vision, which I think is the key step that's missing with so many brand strategists. And that's because we're brand strategy and creative. We want to help execute on it.
Yeah.
And so we define how that's going to happen through what we call our emotive fulfillment model, which basically is the last step in the process. And what it does is it says there are 6 fundamental emotive needs that humans have to feel fulfilled. And if you want your brand to connect emotively with people, then one of the key ways to do that is to start to try and fulfill their emotive needs. And so we map out exactly how we're going to try and do that for each of those 6 emotive needs for each brand. So, for example, I mentioned excitement with the variety of rooms.
Hmm.
Well, one of the ways we made each of those rooms unique was we had a piece of art commissioned from a local street artist, an artist whose work could be seen around the local area. And then so there was a little story in the room, that says what this piece of art is and who it's from and where else you can see their work. And so, and then we offered uh, guided tours. So you could go on a street art tour, and you could see the work from the artist whose work is in your room out in the street. And then
That's
some of
cool.
the artists actually sell their work on the boardwalk. So
That's
you can then
amazing.
be introduced to the artist, and then you can become a patron and buy their work if you want. So that fulfills several needs. One of the needs is the feeling of progress in your life, right? So people would
Hmm.
like to feel like they're progressing in their personal lives and in their careers. So one way you can feel like you're progressing is by learning. So if you learn about an artist or you learn about street art in Venice, you are progressing, and so you're feeling that fulfilled in that area. And then the idea of giving back, is also a very, very powerful emotive need for people to feel fulfilled. And
For sure.
so if a brand can encourage and find a way to help people give back, and in this way, they were able to be a patron for some of these artists, and buy their work. So in a way, you're kind of giving back and fulfilling that need as well. But yeah,
Wow.
that's how we that's in a nutshell. That's how we go about our work. Is that we define
That's
absolute brand clarity. Now we go through those phases, and then we summarize it all in the brand facets model, and then we define how to execute in a way that's going to fulfill people's emotive needs, so that they are compelled to become an advocate, and it fuels viral growth for that brand.
no, that's amazing. That's an amazing story, Dan. How did you, because that story is great. Like, the depth that you guys get with your clients when working with these companies that you do work with through these models that you've built out. That story that you just told us is truly compelling, and I don't know how anyone wouldn't want to work with you guys if they're a little bit stuck on the brand that who they want to become, or if they're just starting out, or even if they've been in the industry for a long time and just wanting to switch up their names a bit. That's truly a
Yes,
compelling
absolutely.
story. How do you find clients that are like this, that need the rebranding that you guys are offering? Because I feel like it's in an industry, it's tough, especially because rebranding or branding in general is such a tough spot to be in because there's so many different directions you can go with everything. Everyone's going to have their own perspective on it. So how do you find these companies that want to rebrand and that you're the perfect fit to help them with this rebranding or just branding in general?
Well, we've got a lot of experience in the kind of consumer lifestyle sector, so that's where we know, we're going to have a very strong fit with a potential client. How we find them is, typically a client that works that seems to be right for us and we're right for them. Very often they're at an inflection point in their business. So you said they may be at the beginning, they may be,
Mm-hmm.
very well established. And we've worked with startups and we've worked with enterprise businesses and everything in between. But they're typically at an inflection point, and that inflection point can come in different forms. But it's an inflection point that says we need to define the vision for our next chapter, and that next chapter is, either we're now going to scale, we're going
Mm-hmm.
for growth and scale, or it might be we're going to actually or it might be we're going to launch, right?
For sure.
And so that inflection point, more often than not, is to do with funding. So that hotel uh, project I just mentioned to you, what we were able to do is by defining that vision and laying it out in a really clear and exciting document, they were able to use that and go and raise funds. In fact, they raised many millions of dollars in order to then
Wow.
refurbish the hotel, which was
Yeah.
amazing, right? And they did it very quickly because it has such a compelling vision, and they could, the investors could see the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and could not just see it from a rational perspective, but they could see it emotively. They could get excited about it, and um, so that's really quite common. We either talk to companies that are about to raise capital,
Mm-hmm.
and they are looking to really define a vision that's going to sell their proposition to investors, sell their dream, or we work with companies that have recently raised capital,
Mm-hmm.
because now they're in a point where they've got the funding to scale, and they take this opportunity to review their next chapter and say,
Yeah.
right, this is the vision, this is what we're going to do with this capital, and these are the results we're going to get. So that's those two of the most common inflection points. But there are a number of others, but typically it's when a company finds that they want to define, a vision. They want to or
For
redefine it,
sure.
because
Yes.
perhaps, or mergers and acquisitions is another really good example
Yeah.
where they've just joined forces,
For sure.
and so they need to really redefine what this new combined business is all about.
Yeah, no, defining the new journey, right? And taking a
Yeah,
step into the unknown, into a new identity, right? So that's
yeah.
super exciting for any company in any industry. They're always going to look forward to this next step. And maybe, like you said, it's just maybe someone that wants to scale their business or just change their messaging a little bit, to work towards that goal and that vision. So I kind of want to take back just a little bit and speak about the industry itself within marketing, within branding as a whole right now, because it is kind of in a weird spot. We have AI that can do a lot of things, but we have very intelligent people that can also do a lot of things right now. And we're kind of at an intersection of everyone's kind of confused on where the industry is going to go, whether it's going to go towards AI or really bright minds. And we don't really know, right? We don't know where the future is going to take us, but we do have a very really useful tool that we can use as well. With everything evolving really rapidly within this industry, what are some of the most exciting opportunities that you see for mystery brands? Or what are some of the industry trends that you're seeing that are going to affect mystery brands at the same time?
Oh, great question. Quite a difficult question. I'd
Yeah.
say that, first of all, I'm quite excited about generative. Let's talk about generative AI specifically because that's probably the most relevant to design, marketing, branding.
Hmm.
I'm personally quite excited about it. I think it's a new era that is, full of innovation and full of opportunity. Um, we're using it to help on the creative process. We use AI as a kind of thought partner, and also sometimes a kind of creative partner in helping to visualize some of our ideas and also to stretch our minds. So if you think about the creative process, your ideas come from your life experience.
Hmm.
And our life experience, whilst broad, and if you're fortunate enough to have traveled and to have met interesting people and been exposed to incredible inspiring things, then your pool for creativity is very broad, and you're going to be it's going to be easier for you. But no matter how broad your pool of experience is, it's going to be minute compared to the pool of experience of an AI brain, right?
Yeah.
Whose experience is everything, like the world.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really great uh, way of throwing, of um, uh, generating thoughts and ideas that are outside your own field of experience.
For
And
sure.
then where the human experience comes in, obviously, is in judgment, right? In understanding, where these things fit together and how which ones are relevant for this specific case study, right? Or this specific project. So I think it's a very exciting time, both for generative AI and for the opportunities are big. I'm also quite excited because one of the things you touched on right at the beginning, which we haven't really talked about, is mystery brands as an incubator and as a co-venturer in a number of
Hmm.
startup brands. And so as these new technologies and innovations arrive, there are lots of opportunities to develop, startups on the back of those. And so we're looking at a couple of businesses at the moment where we're looking at a couple of AI infused, let's call it infused businesses,
That's amazing.
which we're kind of excited about.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. It is the what people say the future, right? So why not dip your toes in it? Get used to it now because you're going to leverage something that's going to be super useful within the future. Do you want to get a little bit more in depth on some of the ventures that you are looking at, or do you want to kind of keep that surface level for
Um,
now? And
I
because there's
think
nothing
they
released yet.
well, I can tell you one of them is a leisure concept. It's
Okay.
an immersive experience leisure concept that I'm really excited about. And we're just in the process of we're just beginning we're just beginning to talk to people about potential capital raise for that startup. Another one is in the fashion area, fashion sector, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much about it at this point because part of both of those opportunities, and I think I think that's this, with a lot of innovation businesses, it's being first to market is quite key. But
Definitely. Yeah.
over the years, we've um, been involved in a whole portfolio of co-ventures
Hmm.
from Bubbleology, which is the leading boba tea brand in the UK, and they have stores in the UK, in France, Turkey, Spain, and a
Wow.
handful here in the US. And that is a great, thriving business. Really exciting to be part of that. Um, the Coffee Collaborative, which was a wholesale coffee business. I've been involved in a number of businesses, not all of which have worked, to be
Hmm.
completely honest. And those are the ones that we've learned so much from.
For
And,
sure.
I continue to learn from when things are tough and, they're not working. Those are the valuable lessons that you can then apply, moving forward.
Definitely. The ones that don't work out are the ones that you're going to learn the most from because you have to try so
Unfortunately,
much
yes.
harder. And yes, exactly. Like marketing in general, it's never always going to work. There's always going to be little misconceptions. There's always going to be little pieces that don't quite fit the puzzle, even though you thought they would. And it's
That's
just
right.
part of marketing, it's part of life, it's part of business. It's not always going to work out. There's always going to have to be shifts made to get the true results that you guys and businesses are looking for and have envisioned. So, um, speaking about that with results, getting results, um, for marketing agencies, I know you guys don't do a lot of more of the. I'm just gonna ask the question anyways. So, for marketing agencies looking to truly scale their customer acquisition, bring in more clients, or just scale in general, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've observed recently, and what seems to be the go-to method for that right now within marketing, in your opinion?
Well, the go-to method right now seems to be, email, outbound email, which, judging by how many emails I get in my inbox, and also LinkedIn messaging, like outbound LinkedIn messaging. Again, judging by my LinkedIn messenger. And so that seems to be, and a lot. I'm getting a lot of messages from companies offering to do that for us. So, offering to do outbound email and LinkedIn
Mhm.
messaging using AI or not using AI, or using resources from cheaper resources from other countries.
For
That
sure.
seems to be a massive trend at the moment. The key, the real key, I think, that, and I'm sure that works for a number of businesses. We are, quite a specialist agency, and so if you're a specialist, then I think really a large part of it comes down to your network and referrals and introductions.
Hmm.
And as you know, I'm doing a webinar masterclass,
Yeah.
which I think is an exciting way to generate both inquiries, but also just to help people.
Yeah.
I think by creating value, by giving away some of our philosophy and our process. I think some people will elect to do that themselves, and that's fantastic, and others will ask us to help them do it. But what I'm doing a 30-minute masterclass season at the moment on LinkedIn, where I go through the absolute brand clarity process, the methodology, but specifically focusing on that emotive fulfillment model and
Hmm.
going through the 6 fundamental emotive needs, and why they're so powerful and how you can use those to really connect your brand uh, to, to to your guests emotively. And why is that important? Because according to Harvard Business School research, 95% of consumer purchase decisions are made emotively, right? That's 95%. So that basically means almost all purchase decisions are made emotively. And you're amazed when you start to realize that and you look around how many companies are still focusing their marketing messaging on rational benefits, on the key rational benefits, the size, the price, the value, the quality, the location, the convenience. Those are all great, but it's what do those things mean for people? What does having, what does it, how does it actually make people feel, and how does it fulfill their emotive needs? That's good value, or because of the quality. What does that mean to them? And so our approach is really around that emotive fulfillment. And so I'm taking people through exactly how to do that and giving them the playbook.
No, that's amazing. We had the conversation before the podcast actually about the webinar because I did join it for the end of the webinar, the one that he had this past week, and it was great. There was a lot of value there. I'm still waiting for the recording so I can go back and listen to it again. But it's a great way. It's a great way to market because you're adding value, and if you can add value, people are going to trust you, and maybe they don't need your services right away, but it opens up their mind to think of something a different way. If you have something special, or just make connection with people as well, people can understand that you have a great way of doing it. You're a great person, adding a lot of value from the conversation of something like a webinar, and it resonates more with people if you are having more of a presentation conversation around it, rather than just shooting them, blasting them an email. You're never going to remember that name. So all comes back to brand, right? They'll remember your brand, they'll remember your name from this conversation that or this presentation that they had listened to that you were a part of. So it's a great way for marketing in general. Now, looking ahead for Mystery Brands, because you did say that you have some new ventures that you're looking to get into, what is the main goal for Mystery Brands? Are you looking to continue consulting these companies, helping brands come up and get started? Or are you looking to venture further into these other AI companies and these other startups that you have coming up soon?
It's, yeah, it's both, honestly. So I love working with entrepreneurs and business leaders. I really enjoy, helping them define their vision and seeing them succeed. And so I don't ever want to stop doing that. I love the consultancy side, and it opens up, it just stretches my mind. It stretches. I'm learning all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and likewise, I'm super excited about the entrepreneurial co-venture side, and the reality of that is um, you have to have fingers and pies for and hope that one of them it is the right place at the right time, because that's really the key to I've seen time and time again, the key to success is being in the right place at the right time and being
For
prepared
sure.
for that and taking advantage of that. In fact, sort of looping all the way back to the very beginning of our conversation about the music business,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I found really interesting was that the artists that I collaborated with, like Elton and Eric Clapton and Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler, all of these incredible, Rolling Stones, all these amazing success stories, almost all of them would say to me that they felt very, very lucky that they were in the right place at the right time. And even though they're super talented and they've taken advantage of that opportunity, and there were other people probably in the right place at the right time that didn't make it,
Mm-hmm.
but they did, and they are, it struck me that I was hearing this again and again, and I think that's so true of business and life, right? That I'm excited that AI represents the right time for something. It's what is it the right time for?
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and it's all about being at the right time, being in the right place at the right time, sorry. And the right mindset too, because you might be in the right place at the right time, but you're not thinking in that direction and you just kind of miss that opportunity. It's similar, but just being that right mindset as well. And I'm a big believer that mindset is everything within life and within business, and you can take yourself anywhere you want to as long as you keep yourself in a direction on where you want to go. So I just wanted to add
Exactly.
mindset into that explanation there because I'm a big believer in that. But Dan, one final question for you, and that is for young entrepreneurs, young marketers getting started within the space. What is some of the best advice that you have to give to them so they can get started and really benefit themselves from listening to
Yeah, I
this
mean,
episode?
that's another great question, and not an easy one to answer, even when you've got decades of experience, because the world keeps changing, right?
Hmm.
What would have been good advice? The advice that could have told myself if I'd known is very different now. Like what I would tell myself now. So what I would tell young budding branding gurus and marketing experts would be, to really not ignore this opportunity with AI and just really dive in and use it as much as you can, get familiar with it, and don't be afraid of it. Actually, and also, but don't fall into the trap of it. Like it's a tool,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that the internet was a tool, and as people have really gotten to grips with that now. um, I think that would be my first and foremost advice. We're at the cusp of, we're very fortunate timing wise, right, where we are at the very early stages of uh, a new era.
For sure.
And to be part of that, is does represent great opportunity. And so my advice would be to not miss that, but prepare for that. And you can prepare for it just by immersing yourself in it. We're using probably a dozen different AI platforms for image generation and for video and for even web development.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, not all of them are as good as each other. Some of them are great, some of them are terrible. But they're all progressing very rapidly. And
For sure.
so now's the time to kind of get in.
Yes, for sure. Totally, it totally is. And we're early, right? It feels like we're late. I don't know, the start of 2025 was like the start of this AI revolution, but we're still super early in the process. So I like what you
Yeah.
said there. Just soak everything up like a sponge, be a sponge and learn about this new technology that is going to be coming out, because it changes every day. Like, you're not going to learn everything, but just learn some, and just learn a lot at the same time. Now, Dan, do you have anything else to say to the audience themselves, maybe where they can find you if they want to work with you in Mystery Brands, or learn more about your webinars, because you did speak about that as well? Mind giving some of that information?
Yeah. So yeah, my name is Dan Einzig. You can find me on LinkedIn. My webinar, you can register for that. There's a link on my LinkedIn profile. So if you go to that, and if you're interested to learn more about that absolute brand clarity methodology and 6 fundamental emotive needs, then that would be the ideal opportunity to join the 30-minute. It's only a 30-minute masterclass, so it's a really digestible chunk for people. And then, for anyone else who's interested in connecting, then they can check out my website, which is mysterybrands.com, and then or email me at dan@mysterybrands.com. Super simple.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate taking the time to come on the podcast. Value, the insightfulness, the knowledge has been amazing. And I really hope everyone that's going to be listening to this episode can really pick up some information from yourself, because you're a brilliant individual. You have a ton of experience within the branding and marketing space. So thank you for joining me and
Thanks.
taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity and the kind words. Much
Yeah,
appreciated. All right.
thank you.